Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sean and Zach Show. That's how we do it.
That was good intro. That was professional.
That's really, I don't have to remember anything. I don't have to have anything programmed. You know, if you don't know the website, then Google it. It doesn't fucking matter. You know what I'm saying? So guys, welcome to the show. This is our episode now.
Yeah.
Danielle went from one pair of shoes to...
Yeah.
Those are, what's on the bottom of those?
Yes, these are Christian.
It's like a lampshade.
Oh,
or
it is.
It looks kind of like a
lampshade.
Yeah, it's a
I think it's supposed to
lampshade.
represent
That's
lipstick.
also looks
I
like
don't
a
know.
sex toy.
Yeah. I was not going to go with lampshade.
That shoe might be the one she hit me in the face with.
No.
Really?
Yeah, I got hit in the
Have you heard
forehead.
that story?
Did you throw a shoe?
No,
Well-
this was more intense. Would you like to hear the
Before
story?
you tell, you guys need no introduction. We got Garrett and Danielle White that are going to talk to us about their domestic violence experiences. But we're here today in the White estate castle, and we have the red souls and the pool and the see-through pool, and it's really fucking cool, man. Yeah. Congrats on all of your guys' success, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Like, real talk, it's cool. Like, very few resorts have pools that you can see through the bottoms. Like, you guys have one in your backyard.
Yeah, we actually
How's
we
that
found
feel?
out real quickly in our house. So we have 17 air conditioning units.
Yeah.
No shit.
Our pool room is as big as any boutique hotel's pool room.
Yeah.
Like, go down to Surf and Sand down here. Our pool room is as complicated as their pool room. Our air conditioning system is as complicated as like half of that hotel. We only found this out because when we bought the house, to try to get anything fucking fixed is impossible. So anyone that comes out, they like our electric system, for example, we had some problems with electrical system. They came out, regular electric guy came out, looked at it, and he said, I'm not touching this.
The regular electric guy.
Yeah, and we're like, why? What's going on? He's like, that's like a $1.6 million system. I fuck this up even a little bit. Like, I got no coverage on this.
Yeah.
I don't have insurance that can cover me.
We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
But like 9 different people come out.
Yes, full send.
It's kind of like
Send
when you
it.
hit a deer with
send.
your
Full
Lambo.
send.
Face tattoo, house style.
You don't know what you're getting into.
I freaking bought a Lamborghini. I decided to hit a deer with it one time, and I was like, no
the
big
deer was
deal.
already dead.
You
too.
hit a deer with
Yeah, it was date night. We're coming home. I'm doing like 75. And by the time I heard her yell, it was already dead. It was laying in the middle of the road.
Oh, no.
And I'm driving
Oh, Jesus.
Fast.
very much over the speed limit. And by the time I heard her yell, slammed right into this deer. Well, you think, all right, just bring it and get it fixed. And it's like they have to import shit from Italy.
Yeah.
Like the bumper and the thing. And it took like,
We could have bought a new Toyota.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could have bought us
Totally.
another
Oh,
car.
Yeah, for what
you were
I paid-
probably $40,000.
We didn't know
just
what we
to
were
get
getting
fixed.
into.
it was about 40 G's, and it
my
took like
gosh.
4 months just to
Yeah.
get my fucking car fixed. It was depressing. So anyway, so congrats on the $1.6 million electric room and the red souls and the whole thing. So we've known Garrett and
You're
Danielle
still
for
with us.
years. We probably should have shot this last night because we had
man.
quite the conversation. And I would have actually had on record that Danielle tried to sell me her company. It was really great.
I don't remember. What did I try to sell it to you for? Because that's what I need to
you're
know.
like, take half of the company and whatever. And I was just like, I think I maybe had a couple drinks too, and maybe I just heard you were trying to sell it to me. Or
I think you said sold and signed something at one
know,
point.
I
So
think-
sorry.
I think we
It
might
was
have
funny.
signed something.
It was fun. Well, you kept trying to be. You're like, okay, Sean. Well, if you're so smart with marketing,
Yeah.
how about you take
You
half
kept
my
saying,
company and go
do
do
whatever
it?
you want. Take it to the next level. I go, fine, buy half my company and show me what we can do.
And the funniest response ever was Sean going, I don't give a shit about your.
I don't want your company. I don't want to deal
I don't
with
want
it.
to do that.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you can't do it? No. Don't be confused by what I said. I don't want to do your company. I don't want to have anything to do with hair.
We've been having the conversations about having conversations with other couples, and obviously we just got into it, and I've screwed up a couple of the episodes.
It's nice to have a woman.
We actually have a woman.
That's what you're saying.
We
First
had the
time.
Sean and Zach show with Grant and Elena Cardone minus Elena Cardone. So it's fun that we actually have
Jordan Peterson minus Tammy.
Jordan Peterson minus Tammy Peterson.
Did you
So
forget to ask the wives?
I did. Well, I told
Jordan's was not Sean's
Jordan's
fault.
wasn't my deal, but I told Grant we're doing the Sean and Zach show, and he's like, cool, no problem. And so he showed up to do the Sean and Zach show, and he just thought we were doing a podcast, and I was like, well, it's our couples podcast. So I learned a lesson that I actually need
Details
to
matter.
talk. Well, what we're doing now is Sax is just going to handle it because
That's
Sax will
good.
make
that's a
sure
great
that
idea.
both people are there.
That's a good plan, bro.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
that's what I was
great.
telling you. I'm like,
Takes
that's
stress
you
off
needed
you.
to
Yeah.
reach out to her. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And
we
Zach's
just
gonna love
finished the Date Your Wife podcast,
Yes.
which we had a great conversation. You guys can go. That's kind of like 1.0 of the conversation.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk a lot about sex, so I think that we definitely should talk more
We
about
didn't talk
sex
any
in
about
this
sex.
episode
Well, of course.
because that's what
Definitely
we
have
do.
sex
We're
on
kind
And
of
that was our last
Full
episode
send.
was on sex. So let's
Was
just
it?
keep
Oh yeah,
that.
ours was.
I feel like we had a good conversation though about true power couples.
Power couples.
Yeah.
We had a great conversation. So guys, make sure you go over and listen to that Who knows what episode number it'll be, but it'll have our name in it. So just look it up. And it was really good.
Well, but the only one, you're the only guest we ever had on the Date Your Wife
so just look for the Date Your Wife with Sean and Sachs. But we talked a lot about the power couple stuff, but like tell everybody, most everybody probably knows who you guys are, but like tell everybody where you're at. Like right here, right now in life, you guys are freaking married for 20 years married,
5
kids.
Together.
It seems like, we're going to burn it down every couple of days, maybe every couple of months. We're on the brink of divorce, and then we're back in, and then we're going to punch each other in the face, and then we're back in. And I feel like you guys are absolutely fucking normal because that's kind of how we are. But you guys are achieving a lot, building a lot, and like living a fairly normal but very abnormal life. Tell us about it.
I like that, living normal but abnormal.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel. I'm
Because
like,
this
I
is
feel
your
normal. And then I like look at my reality. I'm like, this is not fucking normal.
No.
Because how it started to, like, when I tell people, I'm like, yeah, we have 5 kids. We live, in this house. And we homeschool my kids. We're raising ducks and dogs. And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, I don't know that I am.
So where are we?
Keep checking in with me.
Yeah.
Where are we?
At
20 years of marriage, 22 years together, 5 kids. Here we are, 2 businesses.
I feel like I signed up for this. I was like, at some level, I was like, hey, this is your life. You signed up for it. So,
Am I your guy, ride or die?
I mean, I decided.
guy, ride or die?
decided just this year after 20 years. I was like,
good.
That was pretty funny.
Literally,
when Danielle was talking in the other episode, was like, I kind of looked at Garrett and was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this thing with you. Garrett's like, well, after 20 fucking years, I sure hope so. You know what I'm saying?
Finally committed. So you know what's interesting? This ring right here has on it. You guys haven't seen it. I'll hand it over to you. This
pretty.
ring is the diamond on that ring was the engagement ring that I gave Danielle.
Oh, that's cool.
That stone.
That's
and
way
asked her to
cool.
marry me 20 some years ago. So we were in Paris on our 20th anniversary, and we're sitting underneath the Eiffel Tower at this cool restaurant, and Danielle pulls this box out of her
proposed to
purse.
him. That's why I was like,
that's
here you
way
go. Here you go.
That's amazing.
She'd take the original diamond.
I was like, will you marry me? He's like, I guess.
I was like, hell yeah, that's great.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
So
not
talk
heard
about
that.
that. Like you guys have evolved rapidly,
yeah.
wildly, like probably in a lot of ways, maybe just uncontrollably. Like, but you guys have evolved, especially over the last 4, 5, 6 years, like in a radical way. What's that been like for you guys?
I would say it's a wild experience to be well, to number one, make the decision to be in it, to win it as a couple. Like this was like on the table, divorce, like legitimately on the table as a thought process. It came up in almost every fight, clear up until, I would say probably until the birth of Isla. About the time Isla was born, she's 4 now, we had gotten to a place where we finally had kind of made this pivot to, okay, fuck it. You're my person. This idea that there's another option, that there's a better way, that there's a greener pasture, that this somehow is going to work out better with somebody else, kind of came to an end, and for both of us.
But you know what it was? Like, we had kind of like lost everything when my first 2 babies were little. And that was really hard on our marriage. It really questioned our foundation and our relationship, right? So we had to actually figure out if we wanted to be together, because there was no money there. I wasn't like, he wasn't taking care of me. He wasn't paying the bills. So it was like, but I felt obligated because we had these 2 kids, right? So we had this internal struggle because we were trying to rebuild life back together. And so finally, and the reason I believe that we kind of came around is I was always felt like he was 1 foot out the door and he felt the same about me. So I was lacking, even though we were married, I know this sounds crazy, I was lacking a commitment from him. I'm like, motherfucker, you're in or out, but don't dangle divorce on the table anymore. I'm over it. I'm like, I want to feel safe. So for me, it was like, we got to this space where we were renting a home and we could have bought. And I was like, we're not like poor anymore. Why are we still renting a house? And he finally like snapped one day in the kitchen and was like, you don't appreciate me. And I'm like, no, I need this commitment. Like you're in it. And so crazy enough, that's how we ended up in this neighborhood. Is I'm like a big believer in like, not just like, oh, if you put something out, it's going to happen, but like entertaining options. And so I was like, we don't need to rent anymore. This is a story you believe in. And I started this was our dream neighborhood. So I started like literally like stalking realtors and trying to figure out how we could get in. And I sold him on this vision, and he bought me a house 2 doors down from the one we live in now. And it was like, I felt safe and seen and heard. And I was like, finally. And so that's when we really took a turn. And then I got pregnant that year, literally. Because I always knew I wanted more kids, but I honestly didn't even feel safe or connected to bring more humans into the world with him. And so when I felt that safety and security, I was like, I want to have more of your babies. And so that's when we had Isla. And then she was so cute, I accidentally got pregnant again and had 2 more.
It happens. You know what I'm saying?
She needed a
I know
buddy.
exactly when it happened, the night it happened, the
Yeah.
position it happened,
Damn it.
in our master bedroom, the corner of the bed, doggy style. Like I'm
Okay,
telling you, she
that's
looks
enough.
over her shoulder and she looks at me because like with the time we were pull and roll because I was not snipped. And I look at her and she looks over her shoulder at me and she's like, go. And I was like full send go, like don't
go.
pull out, like just make that deposit count. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, fuck, okay. So dude, I slammed it and dropped off the payload and
The funny thing is, I told the
She
doctor,
got
I'm like,
pregnant.
it was one time. He goes, that's all it takes.
It's all
I
it
was like,
takes.
The wilder part that people don't know is like, so she had done her first bikini competition after Isla was born, which completely woke her up sexually as a woman to her own confidence, her own beauty and power. And then she was she was on stage in her, so it was second
was my
fitness
second
competition. And she was, so her first competition
and
she
I
had
was
done,
like,
she was
I feel
7
pregnant,
weeks
but I didn't want to take a
pregnant.
test because I was like, there's no way I'm too lean right now. I cannot be pregnant.
7
So-
weeks pregnant on
Yeah.
stage cutting, which
Yeah,
is wild.
I felt a little.
I couldn't fucking believe it. She walks in the kitchen right here, like a week after the show, holding the stick. And she walks in. I knew, like right when she's holding the stick, I'm like, oh shit. Like I just kind of knew. I was like, we're fucking pregnant again. Like most people are having grandchildren right now. Like until sending me grandchildren pictures. We're about to do this another
Listen,
one.
Grandpa, you're 7 years older than me. I was 38. I was still under 40. I felt good about it.
Well, now here we are. So I got snipped. Now we're done making the babies.
But yeah,
Maybe.
it's been a wild growth ride because it's not like we went from renting a home to moving to our dream neighborhood and doubling our family. You're forced to level up when circumstances change. You're like,
For
you don't
sure.
have a choice. And so for us, Garrett always says like, God's already got a hold of us and we're gonna like, he's gonna point us in the direction we need to go. So we just have to learn.
That's something that I love. Like we talked about earlier is that commitment, like that being all in. You know, we struggled with that. Like we haven't been married 20 years. We've been married 3, coming up on 3. But that's been like that was a huge turning point for us. Was that we're not bouncing.
Yeah.
Like we're not going anywhere. Like that declaration, I think, is what really, for me, sent everything into like to the stratosphere. That's when shit got really good. That's when shit got really hard, like a lot harder, a lot more difficult, but also a lot more profitable across the board, not just emotionally, but you know, financially, kind of a deal. What was that like for you guys? Like that journey in being married for as long as you have and still being, for lack of better words, on the fence, still having that fear.
It was super weird for me. Like I had like, it was, I still like, I can't understand it. There was a piece in my mind that never was allowing me to fully be all in here. And there was this fantasy in my mind that there was some mystery woman that was going to be the full package. Not recognizing the whole time. And it wasn't until I got into plant medicine where like my soul and God was literally taking my face like a dog into his own vomit and just shoving me into it and going, do you not understand? Everything you have looked for your entire life has been standing right in front of you.
Oh, that's so powerful.
And it was super painful to recognize that I had for so many years, 15 years, had just ignored her, like flat out. Like, I mean, I abandoned her emotionally in the first 6-7 years we were married. And I worked so hard. And we were sitting around the fire last night talking like, well, who cares? And we're like, dude, I'm already free. Like, why? Go make another 30 million this year for what? Now all my time's gone. I don't have any time with, Saks. But I didn't see, I was working to prove to her I was worthy of her, only to lose her in the process of working to prove that I was worthy for her, which is super fucking weird.
I think too, like there was times where it was we were almost uncomfortable being together, and so I would say he would sedate in work. And I think that can be very fulfilling for powerful men to do because they're getting validated inside of being the king. And then they come home and they're like, my wife's just fucking nagging at me or fighting. So they feel almost more safe and more validated in work. And then it comes back and we're like, I'm providing, I'm paying all the bills. And like we talked about on our earlier show, a powerful woman recognizes that, like, I will never stop fighting for connection because you want it too.
100%. And I think it's the money's tangible.
Yeah.
Like you can say, see, I'm worthy. Yep. See, it's tangible. When a woman and emotions and like all the complexity of a relationship, it's not tangible. It's like, it's volatile and it's all over the place and it's good, bad, up and down. And so I think it's easy for a lot of men to just be like, okay, this is easy. I can see this, right? Because you have to be more open, more vulnerable, and more exposed when you're trying to navigate and build something out of two people with chemistry and baggage and childhood stuff and all of it. So it's really awesome. Like,
it's wild too. Like, look at this, and like, Sean, you can share what it's like for you with Zach, but like for me, like if you look at it, it's a weird dynamic because as a woman, at least my experience in like 60,000 plus men in the last 11 years of Wake Up Warrior, I watch a pattern, which is guys want to share their feelings. They want to, once they step into this idea that these feelings do matter, but it creates a weird dynamic with the women because if I share my feelings with you, I'm sharing my truth with you, but this almost makes you feel less stable and trusting in me because you realize how big of a fucking emotional mess I am. So it's like I've watched guys get punished for sharing their truth. Right. Women are less attracted to them, even though women say they want it. They actually don't want it. I want your feelings, but I kind of don't want all your feelings because if you share all your feelings with me, now I feel like you're a fucking psychopath. You're not going to take care of me. How have you guys been able to manage like that dynamic of emotional truth while still keeping polarity?
With me, so I reflect back on my own shit. Like I realize I'm also human. I also have my own, moodiness or my own insecurities. And so when I remembered that I'm human, it makes me love his human.
Got it.
And so I judge less because I think a lot of times it's like, and also if you're, if I'm like getting all my safety and validation externally from like the appearance of him being strong, that means I'm not strong on my own. And so it's like, if I feel solid and safe within me, then I can hold space for him and vice versa. And so I don't rely on him for that. But we have a tremendous amount of trust. So it's like I love the vulnerability. And then I also see him like not stay in that. If there is shit, right? He steps out and he goes back out and hunts. But I think it's just like relating to the humanness more than anything.
Yeah. I spent most of my life, like my dad was wildly unstable emotionally, like would go literally weeks without talking to me. Like legit, we'd sit at the dining room table. Dad would be here, mom would be here, me and my brother like at the dining room table. And my dad would like talk to my mom and say, tell your son this with me sitting right, like really, really, really emotionally unstable. Right. And so I grew up not, number one, trusting anybody, but not trusting emotions, not knowing what was real. Like she's helped me with this a ton, like learning to accept love. I don't know how to accept love because you tell me something and you're just trying to fucking get something from me.
Deflect.
There's always like, I have a really hard time accepting gifts. I have a really hard time accepting love because to me, it was always fake or it was always going to be manipulated.
Or conditional.
There would be some condition behind it or, you're going to give it to me and then yank it away kind of a thing. So I just learned to just ball everything up and not trust any of that, not trust the connection, not trust like the intimacy of that. And it was a real struggle like with me and her because we both wanted something different. We both wanted the deep level of connection and commitment. And so I kind of got to there wasn't like this growth phase or this book that I read or whatever. It was literally a declaration where I was like, okay, you got two choices. Keep playing life the same way you've been playing it. You'll have the same relationship. It'll be very superficial. You won't be seen. You won't see. You won't have any connection. Or choose something totally different, which is it's going to be raw. It's not going to be like eloquent. It's kind of like I'm in the bull in the china shop. But the one thing I'm committed to is truth. I'll always tell you my truth. And we agreed to that. And like I was really open with Sax when we were dating, when I was telling her like, look, I mean, I was open about my past and my dad and my stuff and my lack of trust and all this other stuff. But I was like, the one thing that I will give you is I will always give you the truth. It might not be what you want to hear. It might not be the best way to say it, but I won't ever fucking lie to you. You know what I'm saying? Because I spent most of my life lying and being lied to. And so that's all I was conditioned with is love was conditional, words were conditional, emotions were conditional. And so there's like never any safety there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that were raised in, I don't want to say environments like that. There's a lot of great families and whatever, but we didn't really have an example. I don't think a lot of people, we've talked about this,
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't have the best example of vulnerability. We were raised like by industrial fathers who just beat their chest, went out, got up before the sun came up, came home after the sun came down, had a couple scotches and went to bed. That's how I was raised. I never saw intimacy and connection with my mom and dad. I never saw vulnerability. They never did the trips and went away and dated. I mean, my dad never took us out for guys' night, let alone dated my mom. You know what I mean? So when you don't have that experience or that example, how the fuck do you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And so I think through trial and error, I found that like I didn't like not being able to trust. I didn't like not being seen. You know, you want that moment where you can come home and be real and be like, this is what it is, this is what I'm feeling, but you can't, so you just lie. How's everything going? You're good, right? And that led me to literally almost committing suicide. And so when we said like, well, we're going to do this, that was like the one non-negotiable was we would always tell each other the truth. And it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be painful. But I think when you strip away a lot of what people struggle with, there's a lot of people struggle with truth and believing what's real and what's not. Is he telling me the truth? Is he telling me this because he doesn't want to hurt my feelings? Is she really telling me the truth? I mean, it broke it all the way down to sex, like where it was like, are you just fucking me because like you want, or do you actually really want me? Like, are you attracted to me? You know, and there's a lot of that happening in our culture and our society because I don't think people are willing to truly talk about it.
I think the scariest thing is being honest with your thoughts. Because like we have this little box that we're like thinking this and we're like, he won't know I'm thinking this, but he knows your energy. So he knows when you're not in it. So you're basically like lying to his face by just holding your thoughts in, which is not sharing your truth.
And so energetically, you know that.
And it's crazy that you're bringing this up because this was a big thing for me the beginning of this year is I was like, I'd keep all my thoughts in this little box. And I was like, I can't share them with him. I don't want him to feel bad. And then I was like, you know what? I have to share my truth even if it's ugly.
Yep.
And it might come out really bad, but I still have to share my truth because otherwise you're kind of dying inside, like you said.
And Garrett, so with that, because this is super common, it probably stung at first, right?
Oh, it was like I've not had. So I have a tool in Warrior that we've been using for the past 6 years called stacking, which is essentially like a daily dialogue with yourself. It's like having a text exchange with God or with yourself, like your own mind. And thousands of our guys use this every day. And I've been using it for 6 years at roughly an hour to hour and a half every single fucking morning. It's like my medicine. I was so shellacked, like just motherfucked by this truth bomb she had dropped on me about where she was at, that I was struggling after even years of doing this to even be able to get my thoughts and feelings out into the stack, even to be able to type them into it. Like I couldn't even type it. I was so emotionally just
Well, it's risky.
lost. Like having moments, I remember sitting in my daughter's playroom at like 4:30 in the morning and like crying and going, how the fuck did you do this, bro? Like, you could lose everything and all you ever wanted was her. How the fuck did this happen? You have the castle, you have the cars, you have the businesses, you have the brands, you have the date nights, you buy the jewelry, you do the trips, you do the vacations, you take the kids, you do the $200,000 to Europe, you've hit every fucking piece on the checklist. How the fuck did this happen?
Yeah.
Like I had no response for it. It was so emotionally intense for me. Like for weeks, I was just like, I don't.
I think we both had gotten to this place where we exceeded our blueprint and we were like, we made it. We're cool. And then we were both like, had like a little piece that was like dying inside.
Yeah.
We were like, wait. And so it's like, how else do you do this other than like, yeah, you can just live life and be roommates and pretend like it's okay, but it's not. You can sedate, but it's not okay. So it was just like, okay, we've got to take our relationship and everything that we have built to a whole nother level. And it's crazy to feel that way when you've been married to somebody for 20 years. You're like, we're going to the next level, babe. Like, hang on, it's going to get rocky and it's going to get bumpy. But when you know the person you'll become on the other side, you're kind of like fuck, it's going to be hard. But like, if I get through this, when I get through this, the person I am on the other side is so powerful. So how could I ever say no to that? You know?
See, I love the mindset though, because yours is a new level. It's not, oh, we're fucking
fucked.
done.
No,
We're fucked.
yeah.
And it's like, that's a choice, right? Because it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
So it stings at first. You obviously work through it because you were all sitting here.
Yeah.
And now, like, what does that feel like and look like now? And like, are you grateful that truth bombs are dropped on your relationship?
Well, I
Both
will
of
tell you right now, I was telling this with you guys last night. She saved my companies. Like, she saved her companies. I was so blinded by where I was at. I didn't recognize I was running my companies off a cliff the same way I had in 2008. Like, I was like so dead set on what I thought was the way, even though all economics on it were proving not to be. All assumptions we'd made for 7 months were not working. Every major assumption I was investing, it was not working. And she knew this and I knew this, but I'm so fucking stubborn. I was like, oh no, we're going to fucking make this work. So her colliding with me didn't just bend the frame on how I saw our relationship. It bent the frame of my entire reality. Everything then was now distorted to be seen from a new angle. And the business and me and her, and frankly, she had the courage to do what I did not in 2009. Yeah. And so she came to me. I mean, I'm going to give it to you Frank style. She came to me and said, we're so disconnected at a soul level that for the last 6 to 9 months, my mind has been fantasizing about fucking other men, being with another man, a man who is powerful, a man who will care for me, see me, and own me, devour me. And I'm sitting there going, I mean, Deez is a guy being who I am and what I do, and sitting here with my wife saying this to me. Yet she was saying it.
He was pissed. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm feeling guilty for these thoughts. I don't want this. I want to be connected to you. Like, I'm like, I got to get this out. I got to get this out. And I'm like, and it was risky because he's very powerful and he could have been like, fuck you. I don't want to fight for this. You know who I am? Like, and I was like, well, it's risky. But I was at that point where I'm like, here we go. And I think that powerful men, like, honestly, there's no sugarcoating it. Like, they need a dagger, a little
blunt
bit.
object, right?
Yeah.
Smack in the head. Just literally punch you right in the freaking face.
Well, 2009,
but I don't think
I was feeling the same thing she was feeling, right? But I didn't say anything about it. So instead of saying anything about it, I started using women around me as outlets to fill this emotional void. And this ultimately led to an affair. And that piece is what broke me. And so my wife came to me and demonstrated here, since 2009, 14, 15 years later, a courage and a strength I did not have back in 2009. Because it's inevitable. Like, it would have gone that way. Like, it would have gone that path. But she even told me, she was like, I'm too high quality of a woman. I'd never cheat on you. I just left you. Just be done with you. And I was like, she did everything I couldn't do. She was stronger than I was. And she interrupted the drift a year before shit would have ended in a way I didn't do. So it's wild for me as a man to sit there and be like, I am Garrett, I am Wake Up Warrior, and then be reminded one more time that the original Wake Up Warrior is this one who woke this warrior up that even started the movement.
God, I love it. I love that this is being shared because this is like, well, it's going to trigger people big time because they probably know they need to look at something. But this is super inspiring because this is like women, it's like being given permission, right? You have permission to speak up, showing that there's a bigger outcome that needs to happen. And it's really, and for men to be able to hear that you can receive that and alchemize that into something powerful to save your companies, to do everything else you want to do and need to do in life. So it's really rad. I'm really glad.
So you're sitting in distorted land for weeks. Like, what the fuck? You just got hit with the blunt object, the truth bomb, whatever.
Well, it was wild because for the next 36 days or so.
Fucking dick.
Then what?
He was.
Well, we had two things going on that were completely confusing. Number one, we're fucking every day.
It's weird.
Like 1 to 2 times, 3 times a day. Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, fuck more than 30 days after this happened than we'd probably fucked in the previous 6 months.
It woke something up.
She just wanted to fuck every day. And so we're fucking. And at the same time, she's like, you better figure your shit out or I'm out of here. And I'm like,
Mixed
Are you just
signals?
using me? I feel like a piece of meat.
God, dude, this is like a lot to carry right now. Like I'm
It
getting
seemed like an
fucked.
appropriate time to bring it up. You know,
Well, it'd be right after. It'd be like, you better figure your shit out. Because there's a lineup of billionaire men who will want this. You better figure your shit out. And I'm like, and then it would go from anger to rage to like helplessness to feeling sad to feeling like a victim to like all these things.
this
all at
is
once.
really when I realized for myself, like even if I would say things like, oh, I'm just going to go get me another billionaire husband or whatever, it was almost like, do I want that? No, I'm looking for connection. And that's when I was like, okay, all right. And I had to kind of take some accountability on myself of like not speaking, like we talked about on the other show. It was like, women are like, I'm fine. Don't share your truth. Don't talk about it. It's too scary. What's going to happen? But ultimately, like, even though it was scary, who you became this year is a different human, right?
Yeah.
And so it's scary, but it's like challenge accepted. And we really feel like just this year is like, you know, when you have like moments where you're like, why do I feel like I grew 10 years in 1 year?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, that's kind of where I like you just, I feel like this year I became a woman, just this year.
You know what's cool about that though? Like we live in a culture and a society where it's like, this is the norm. Not what you're talking about, but like, here's what the normal looks like. This is how it should be. You know, sit down, calm down, quiet down, slow down. Like just be these creatures who are just this even keel, you know, and you end up with a spike here or spike here, then that's abnormal and whatever. But like, we are not that far off from this conversation. You know what I mean? In many ways, and probably at a, maybe not as cataclysmic level, but at a very regular level where it's like we're constantly being thrown into this like next level opportunity, which fucking sucks. And it completely, like you said, distorts all reality. You're going, I am the guy. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, I'm the king. I built the shit. And she's like, no, not really. And you have two choices. Like, you get really fucking mad, really upset, really sad, or you have to look at it. I think what's interesting about this conversation is there's very few people that, look, we're blunt objects. We just call it, we just talk about it. Like we could probably psychoanalyze this conversation and break it down in some methodical way that might be digestible to the average person. But at the end of the day, like we just fucking share the shit and it's what it is. But I'd be willing to bet that there are countless people in that same reality, in that same dynamic, you know what I mean? Where they're both living and coexisting. And inside there's like that rage, that depression, that fire, that like, dude, let's fucking go to another level. And somehow, some way you just end up in this muted existence where you don't know how to share it. You don't know how to talk about it, right? It's going to piss him off. She's not going to accept it. I want more blowjobs. I want more security, yada, yada, yada. And it's this vicious cycle where people start to sedate. They go other places, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. Like, is there anything more liberating and powerful than going into that space? Is there anything you could have done that would have been as catapulting for you as a man than going into that space?
Nothing. Like as painful as it was, like that moment, those couple months were what propelled me to be me now.
Right.
And like me now made pivots that God's been asking me to make in business and in my own life. In who I am, like going into next year. She's been asking me every year, listen, I need more time from you. I need you to be around more. You work too fucking much. You've been working. And every year I'm like, okay, this is the big year I'm going to make the change. And the truth is the last 5 years I fucking failed on the turn. 5 years in a row I failed on the turn. And then I make myself commitment inside my consulting business and my practice. And now I'm completely burned the fuck out. Like 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, coming home at night, just very tired, just burnt. So like I'm all in with my kids and my wife, but there's just a burn factor that happens. So it took that. And now going into next year, 131 days of regular Monday through Friday working days. 131 days are now no longer, like there's no scheduled work. Like, meaning it's not that I won't work. It's just that there's not, my time's not sold already, but it's been that way for 5 years. Well, she's been asking, we've been talking about this for 5-6 years. And it didn't happen until this year.
I think it's probably scary though. You've worked like you're such a worker. Like to not have work, you're like, what am I gonna do? I think you're almost like scared.
For
like,
sure.
It's like if you're gonna have free time, what are you gonna do?
For sure.
You need a hobby. Like
That's what our therapist.
start rolling your own cigars or painting or pottery.
Start
Buy
doing-
a pottery wheel for
You come give
Christmas.
me a pottery wheel, just be sitting there like just massaging clay on a Tuesday.
I think it will free up creative space
I for
because,
sure
like,
know
for
it
me, like when I have more time, I really appreciate the moments with my children, and then I also appreciate time for me. But it also has opened up a creative window where I can see things inside my business that if I'm grinding, I can't see. So I think for you, you're never going to stop working, but the stress level has to go down in order for you to create and go to the next level.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I feel like that's love. Like love's not a Hallmark card. Like love is like accountability. Love is that wanting more and that pushing for more. Like that's what I love most about our marriage.
We almost have like made it, I don't want to say a game, but like we're not looking for discomfort. We're not looking for pain. We're not looking for the fight, but we both know that like it's become such a regular part of who we are and what we are that we're constantly pushing each other. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes like it gets a little heavy, it gets a little much. We kind of pull back the reins a little bit. But dude, when you see potential, when you see like what's possible, and whether it's she seeing it in me or me seeing it in her, like there comes a part of vulnerability and real like trust in your partner where you're like, look, I want you to push me. And I think a lot of men right now, or we talked about this earlier, they don't know really how to grasp that. It's like she's just being a bitch, she's just nagging, whatever. And same thing with women, like when your man's stepping into a space saying, hey, I want more from you, or I expect more from you, or let's go, let's level our game up. There's a lot of opportunity to be offended, but I really feel like when you get into a place where it's like we're all in, that becomes the norm. I think right now in our culture and our society, it's like the norm is just to be miserable and sedate and just pop drugs and do whatever, so that we don't have to face that shit. And I found like the more quote unquote power couples that you talk to and see and communicate with, like, you know, Grant and Elena Cardone, we were talking about that. Like Elena's constantly just pushing Grant. Like when he's like, I'm going to be a millionaire. She's like, no, motherfucker, you're going to be a billionaire. And it's like, word. Like, he's like, I hadn't even thought about being a billionaire. He's like, he's talked about this openly.
And I love
he's
how he
like,
shared it, pissed him off. He's
Yeah,
like,
made him
aren't I
mad.
fucking good enough? Like,
Yeah.
Jesus, woman.
yeah, like I already got a jet. We got to get a bigger jet. But that to me is the dynamic of real evolution of couple, of being in a relationship when you're like, look, like wherever people are listening to this right now, we get a lot of listeners to the show that I know a lot of people, we get tons of feedback. And I with 51% of marriages are ending in divorce, we know that this is real.
Right.
If 80% of second marriages and third marriages are ending in divorce, we know that this conversation is fucking real. So it's like one of those where, when are we going to have it? Like, when are we going to sit down and have this conversation? And really, it might take 2 or 3 weeks to stick your head up your fucking ass and be really out of shape, like out of like, and then maybe you're fucking every day. That's like a great thing. But like, it might send you for a fucking total tailspin. But the reality is like, isn't that a gift? To me, that's like a beautiful opportunity, a beautiful invitation to grow. And I feel like you guys have been married 20 years. This came at 20 years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fucking people that I know that have been married for 20 years that are really happy. And there's a lot of people that have been married for 20 years that fucking hate each other. They're just roommates. And so like, I love the dynamic that you have the lady balls to be able to bring that to him. And you've got the man balls to be able to accept it and go, okay, cool. I'm not going to throw off the cliff. We're not going to end this bitch, but like, this is going to take us to a completely new level. And it, you know, 20 years, you can completely reinvent your marriage.
Right.
At 20 years, you can reinvent the entire dynamic of sex, of emotion, of connection, of communication.
Right.
You know what I mean? I really love it because I know that the communication we get from people is a lot of people feel hopeless. A lot of people feel like, look, we've been doing the same thing. We've been doing the same dog and pony show. We've been eating at the same restaurant. We fuck the same way. If we even fuck for years and years and years and years, maybe we just call it a day and start over.
It's scary.
It's scarier to go all in. It's almost easier to be like, well, I'll try it again. It's,
For
you know,
sure.
It takes a lot of like accountability. But I will tell you, like this year specifically, I told Garrett, I was like, when we're connected, this is like crazy, but I feel one. Like, I know that sounds cheesy, but I'm like, literally, if you take one power person, great. You take one power couple, get the fuck out of our way.
Yep.
So that's how I believe we are supposed to be. We're supposed to unify because
Absolutely.
two is always going to be bigger than one. And so when I got that, I'm like, okay, this is blowing my mind a little bit. Like, it's just like universe shit. But I'm like, okay, let's go. It's like an evolution of people that are going to need to be taught this and understand this to flip this planet. Like, I really believe it.
100%.
Yeah.
We had a moment, there's like, it was about a week and a half ago or so. And it was kind of like a symbol of like what things have become now from that pivot. So like forever and ever and ever, like sex was like the thing, like forever, like my world, how I was raised, being the relationship we're in, I just always was desperate for sex. And we were not having sex every day. We were having sex every couple of weeks. And it was just like, it was not very fulfilling for either one of us for a very long time. So I just thought that was going to be it. Kind of like somebody thinks about, hey, when I get a bunch of money, then I'm going to have no problems.
Yeah.
And of course, we start having more sex, and then it starts fulfilling on it. And I start having those experiences. And then both of us come to terms, which is what this year became about, which was we accomplished all of the primal level checklist that said, when I complete this, then I will feel this. And we're looking at the list, and both of us are being honest with ourselves. Neither one of us feel what we thought we'd feel. The thing we wanted to feel was something you can't buy. The thing we wanted to feel was this soul level connection. The thing we wanted to feel was the desire to be wanted and desired by one. And so we're laying there. We realized, like, it was like a couple months ago where we both had this weird moment where sex was actually in the way of the thing that we wanted. To where she's literally like, hey, let's just have orgasms real quick so that we can just cuddle. And I thought it was like weird. I'm like, yeah, that makes, and I'm even in my own brain, I'm like, yeah, I don't even give a fuck we have sex right now. I just really just want to like hold you.
You're like, let's just get that out of the way.
So then the week and a half ago, she rolls over and lays on top of me. We do two things that are super crazy. Like the first one, I'll go back on after sex. So like we'll be missionary and like we'll finish. And then she started this. I didn't start this. She started this, which is like, she'll me pull out and then I will lay down on her body with my head on her chest between her breasts. And then she will hold the back of my head and my back. And then she'll do this thing where she's like, let go.
Well, I'll tell him, I say, you're safe. And because I think that men want this element of feeling like to surrender into their woman and feel safe. So he's twice my size. And I'm like, I got you. I'm like, drop your weight on me. And it was a very like spiritual experience because he was like, am I going to squish you? I'm like, I lift weights. You're not going to squish me. But like, it was this him being vulnerable to me because he's this big, strong guy. And I'm like, I got you. Let me hold you. So I think that men want to feel that same safety in a way.
So it was mind-bending, laying there. It took me about 5-7 minutes the first time to actually let all of it go. She would just keep saying, let go. And I would find myself with my elbow like propping myself up, or like my knee like kind of giving myself a little leverage to keep my body weight off her. And then finally it was just like, okay. And then there was just this one breathing between the two of us as she's holding me, which was super new for me.
It unlocked something in you. It just like you like kind of surrendered it. Like you dropped a piece of your ego a little bit. And I was like, I got you.
It was wild. Like it was so pure. It was so, it's what I'd always wanted. I just didn't even know it's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So then like a week and a half ago, she rolls over and lays on top of me. There's not even a thought about us having sex. There's just, she's laying on top of me. She falls asleep. I fall asleep. And we're just wrapped up together. And I'm like, man. This is everything that we wanted, but we would have never gotten it. I don't think I would have ever gotten it my whole life, because the challenge of getting divorced is I'd have to start the whole fucking cycle over just to get to the same place again, in which my shit was in the way of us being able to actually experience communion with each other. Which was incredible. So like if you had told me a few years ago, hey dude, listen, your greatest experience is going to be cuddling with your wife and you won't even care about sex, but you go fuck yourself. That's not even possible. Yeah. How's that even possible? How's it even possible?
We start every day. It's almost like we get off, like not like off, but like we're off kilter. Like we'll start every single day that way. Like every single morning is snuggling. Yeah. Like I'm a fiend for it. Like it's, and the crazy thing, the ironic thing is my first marriage, we had like a body pillar. It was like, good night, don't touch me, I'm going to sleep. Where now it's like we crave that, just that connection, like going to bed at night or waking up in the morning. There's just that union there where it's like you're just wrapped up together. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's so much noise and insanity inside of homes and in marriages and egos and fear. Like fear, that takes some serious audacity to do that, because there's the ego of it. This is weird. This is awkward. Like, Does this make me less? Does she think less of me? You know what I mean? And you got giant fucking egos. Like, it's what it is. You know what I mean? That reminded me of when we were on the houseboat in Lake Powell. Sax would do this thing where, and she's kind of a hippie.
It's energy work.
Whatever. And we would lay there, and I'll never forget, as long as I live, we're like under the stars. You guys have been Lake Powell, like on the top of the houseboat, the whole thing. And she would just put her hand on my heart and would just like pull things like out of, like, I could physically feel her like pulling things out of my heart, and she'd just sit there for like hours, it seemed like, and was just like pulling this shit out of me, kind of a deal. And it was like, and then you get to that surrender moment where you're like, no, this is a special moment. This is a unique moment. I feel like that's kind of I don't want to say pinnacle, but that's a place that everybody wants to be.
You know what I mean? Sex is easy. You can have sex with any. You can go to a bar and find someone to have sex with, but to be intimate, to have true intimacy, is not easy. I mean, that's like that takes surrender, and it takes that love, and that takes being truly seen. And most people allow themselves to be seen.
So how do you guys nurture that? I'm curious. How do you both nurture that?
I was gonna say I'm kind of like greedy because like I want it all. Like I'm like I still want good sex, but I have to have connection. Yeah, like you said, you can go anywhere and get that, but I cannot live without connection. And so for me, it's air. It's I sense when it's off, and I'm like, okay. And I am now responsible for my own feelings and knowing when it's off and being like, guess what, buddy, we're off, and that's okay. I'm not gonna wall up. I'm not gonna close down. But I'm gonna need you for a couple days. I'm gonna need you. And he in the past has not been able to like rearrange stuff, but now it's kind of like going into this next year. That's one of the things I'm excited to do, because it's like I can come to him, and if he doesn't have such a tight schedule, then I know that he wants to take care of me in that way. He knows that's my air, and it is for him too, right? So
we've done a couple interesting things since this occurred. So one of the first things we started therapy every week. We have our therapist, his name's Stephen Callis. He's known as the Wizard. And we started doing a 2-hour session every Tuesday. And at first, like, it was just war zone bloodbath. Like, we came to the table, he was referred to us by Keith and Jesse Yackey from Married Game. And we go and sit down with him in our first session, and I just share with him what's going on.
I'm like,
and
hey,
he's
babe.
just like looking, and he's listening to everything, and I'm telling him, Danielle's saying this, she's thinking she has all these fantasies about fucking other guys, and da-da-da-da-da, I don't know what this means for our marriage. Like, we get right into it with him, like, in the first week of this stuff going down. And then he, like, calmly just sat there, and he looked at Danielle, and I said, so it sounds like you're a woman who just desperately wants to be seen. And this is good. Let's get to work. And so we've spent 2 hours every week in a session with him since March. And that has been one of the things that's fostered it, because he uses the Enneagram. And what he'll do with the Enneagram is he'll take, I'm an 8, she's a 5. And he'll take who we are, and he'll language it back. So like we'll be fighting in session, and he'll go, go to silence.
It's like a translator.
How would he help 2 8s? Just curious.
Do you know your Enneagrams? That's funny. He was like,
an 8.
You guys are both 8s?
That's why we like to
go
at it.
Yes.
I'm in a room full of crazies.
Like
2 of our kids are 8s, too. Yeah. Sorry.
Are you an 8 also?
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
And you're an 8.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit. This is double spicy.
Oh,
you know
dude,
what, though?
It's... Yeah.
I think you're more alike. So it's probably good. Like for Garrett and I, we're like, even our therapist was like, how are a 5 and an 8 together? I was like, I don't know. So it's like we're so kind of polar opposite that it's been like tricky to learn each other's languages. But that's why therapy's been good for us, because I say, hey, you work on your businesses. Why wouldn't you work on your marriage? Like you're together, but you're not actually working on your marriage. Therapy to me is working. It's not a date night. It's not family time. It is working on your marriage. And so
it's heavy work too.
It's and it's heavy. Sometimes it's less heavy, but it's just maintenance. It's working on it, and it's just like the maintenance of marriage. And so for us, because our personalities are so different, communication is crucial. Like we speak different languages, like not even just male and female, but like our personalities are so different.
And so he's helped us figure out, like he's helped us gain understanding of what the other's saying. And so he'll take on these roles with us. We'll be like, okay, Garrett. He's like, Danielle, shh, your cone of silence. Okay, Garrett, I'm going to be alternate Danielle. And then he'll say things in a way that an 8 in the Enneagram would understand.
Can understand it. Yep.
Instead of the way a 5 would say it. Because if 5 says it, I'm like, fucking critical bitch. What is wrong with you? Then he'll rephrase it and do it in this other way. And I'm like, oh. And then I'll look at her and I was like, is that what you're trying to say?
Figure out how to communicate it to him. I'm like, I need to say it like that. That I do sound like a critical bitch. But sometimes I want to sound like a critical bitch.
See, and we talk about, we share that we're...
What time do you need to go?
Oh, probably in the next like 5 minutes.
Okay.
We share that we have a coach, like we promote it. But I think a lot of couples, like they know that they're going to open up like Pandora's box. But it's like once everything comes out of Pandora's box, then you can like have constructive, work throughs. Like then you actually can build. But people have to give the space for like the crazy because it's all going to come out.
The way you make it work is you have to, like, I think so many people go into it like with that attack. Like, look, help her understand what the fuck I'm trying to say, okay? Because she just doesn't get it, and vice versa kind of thing. Where we just decided, look, like, he's helped us understand this, our whole over-under. We go over-under, right? When conflict comes, I go over, which is like, I'm a raging bull. I'm going to fucking fight to the death, and we're going to figure this shit out now. And she
like,
goes under. She leaves. She's like, peace out, I'm gone. And I'm like chasing her, like whether it's physically or psychologically, to
then I'm even
grab her and
go.
bring her into the fucking fight. And I'm like, we're going to solve this shit now. And she's like kicking and screaming, trying to get away. Right. Well, when she leaves, then it sends me into a fucking, I go into nutty land and I don't know how to not be in nutty land. So then I'm like waiting and then it's just like this thing. And so he starts explaining this and I'm looking at it going, all right, cool. So now when she walks out, I'm like, peace. Whatever.
That's how you got to shoot.
Sometimes. I mean, I'm maybe like a 50-50. I'm getting better at it. I'm not an expert at it. I still fucking come after it. But it's like when you understand that and you're really like, I think a lot of couples struggle with this because like we want to be seen and heard so much that we're willing to just attack the other person and somehow thinking that that's how we're going to like, look, I'm going to beat the shit out of you with my 8 so that you fucking get it. And no matter how hard you swing, no matter how hard you hit, you're still never going to land there. Right. And so I feel like that first step is like when you're in a relationship and you're like, hey, we're going to do this. Like, I get we're going to war, but we want to do this. And then you can start to understand that real communication. Like you said, you know how to talk. She knows how to talk to me and I know how to talk to her. Now, do I do it all the time? No, because it's hard as shit because I want to just like rage and get right to the freaking point.
Slam it.
Yeah, and it doesn't take that. She's like, you need to come in and massage my feet and talk. And I'm like, fuck your feet. Yeah. We're getting right down to this shit because I don't have time to deal with this bullshit. Right. You know what I mean?
It takes a conscious effort. You're like, hey, there's how Sean would come in and then you're like, but how do I get what I want out of this?
Right.
Yes. And so then you have to communicate it how she wants to hear it to get what you want. Right. And the minute I got that in our relationship, I'm like, I don't want to say it this way, but to get what I want, I'm going to do it this way. And and I still, same thing. We all do it. We're all human. So I always say, give yourself the human grace card. Yeah. That's we're on this planet. We're like here and there all in the same time. So, but it's just being conscious about it to get what you want.
Have you guys noticed how the war has shrunken? What used to be weeks.
Oh yeah, like
turns
if you're in a
into
fight
days
or
and days.
and
Now you're kind of like. I feel like for us, like we used to go days or whatever. Now it's like,
you're like
15 minutes. Shit. All right, smack your ass. We're right back in fucking game and marching on.
We've definitely compressed it. I think there's a piece too that it's almost become a lot of things that used to just put us over the fucking edge have actually become funny.
Yeah.
Like because we're so aware of our patterns and our addicted patterns in the past of how we would
we're
act.
less triggered and we can kind of like laugh at it. We're like, okay,
It's like more curious. And that's the thing our therapist worked with us on is curiosity and comedy.
Oh, yes.
He's like instead of being critical, be curious. Instead of being like crazy, be comedy, like bring comedic humor to the situation.
And it's weird how it does like fizzle out like a trigger. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh really, is that what you want? And I'll say it in that stupid voice. He's like, no, that's not what I want. And I'm like, okay.
Well, like she'll come in and he like taught me a move too, where they're like, she'll come in and say something like about how why are you leaving? Like why it's cleaning day. Why would you just put all these dishes right here? I don't understand. Why would you even do that? So in the past I'll be like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Do you understand how much I've been doing today? I leave out this on the counter. You want to fucking make a big deal about it. And then the fight starts. And then I'll just reverse it and I'll be like, I know. Most days I wonder how you ever could tolerate being with a man who would dare to leave dishes on the counter. I mean, this is one unique human that you are. You are such a unique human that you
And then
tolerate
I'm like,
such
fuck
a
off, I'll
dipshit.
put it in the dishwasher, get out of here.
And I started laughing about it. So instead of being pissed at her, I just like, I'm like looking, what's the judo comedy like reframe on this that lets us like laugh?
Right.
Instead of like being so pissed off and angry all the time.
Right.
Which is what I went to every time. I just went to war every time. She'd say something, I was like, oh, you're fucking critical. I'm going to attack you now.
And you always end up getting the same shitty result there.
Yeah.
Always.
But you always go back to the same place. Like I know for me, when I do that, I would pull back and I'd be like, God damn it, dude. Like, you know what the fuck is going to come of this.
Yeah.
You know how this is going to end up.
Then you get
Why
mad
do
at
you do
yourself.
this? And then I get mad at myself. And then you come like the puppy dog and you're like, hey, I'm sorry. Yeah, whatever. Here's some flowers. Like, let's go fuck. You know what I mean? And it's always like, you feel like she's like looking at you, but she's looking at you because she's like, yeah, you'll get it one day. You'll get it one day. You know?
How is doing the podcast together allowed for you two to have more communication intimacy, or has it, or is it not really mattered? What do you think for you, Sax?
Oh, fully. Yeah. Well, it creates, we talked about this last night. It creates almost like there's an accountability partner called the camera. So you kind of have to keep somewhat on your best behavior
Social
because,
behavior.
you know, like they're watching. And so for us, it creates an environment to where I think you're way more vulnerable having this setup. And I don't know if it's just because you're used to speaking and you're used to this, because it's not as like invasive, but you're so open in this and I love it. And for me, I have to speak up. Like there's a microphone. I have to
Maybe we should
share.
just put microphones around the house, and when we're ready to go to war, we'll just be like,
You guys are
So
about
you
to
know
fight.
what?
Grab
listen,
the mics.
here's the deal. This is what we're going to do right now.
We actually did that. And once in a while, we'll do it is we'll just start recording. We'll have a recorder on
Have
our
you guys
phone.
done that?
No.
Because
you can go back and listen to yourself and you're like, oh, wow.
I used to do it just because I'd be like, see what a jerk he is. So,
And then you listen to
And then
yourself.
I realized, and then our coach was like, no, that's a great idea. Record it. When you start fighting, turn it on. And now we both are like, shit.
Yeah. So she would record like our wars, and I didn't know. And then that fucking pissed me off. I'm like, oh, you're gonna blackmail me? Go fuck
Yeah.
yourself. Like whatever. And I'd like try and sneak in her phone and like delete them
And
all.
more for
kind
me,
of a thing.
I was recording so I could be like, do you hear yourself?
Right. But then I started doing it. And so when I turned the camera, the record on, she'd be like, what are you doing? You're going to, and she'd like storm off.
was like,
and so it was
I'm
like
not
this really
saying anything
interesting
now.
game of like, how are we going to hold each other accountable to this conversation and to truth and reality? You know what I'm saying? You got to go.
I gotta go, kids.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. This is episode 1. Because we have
we
so
could
much
kill
more
for
to
a long
talk
time.
about.
It's fun with you guys.
I know. We haven't even had a cocktail yet.
I know.
Next episode, we're going to have a couple cocktails and we're going to talk about some of the other things. But
That'll be the sex episode.
anything else you want to
Sure.
add? Any nuggets that you want to leave the world with, about you guys or your relationship or encouragement or anything?
I feel like we dropped like a lot of good content in this, and I think it is needed with where the world is at, and traditional relationships are not working, and there is a crazy amount of divorce. And so I feel like it's because marriage and relationships needs to be retaught. And so that's what I feel like kind of called to do with Garrett. That's why I'm actually not that open, but I am willing to be vulnerable and open if I know it's going to help somebody else. So I would just say we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully people listen and they choose to make changes for themselves and for the relationship.
You for sure stepped into that over the last couple of years. Like I've noticed that just having known Garrett as long as I have and known you guys as long as I have, like you've used your voice a lot more and spoken out a lot more and just stepped into that space. Same with you. Like Sax was deathly afraid of the microphone when we first got together. And now she's like on stage and sharing and talking. So
I'm just
hats off to
because
both of
it's
you
a-
guys.
it's
You
a
got
partnership.
crazy alpha psychopaths. Like just
We
charging
chose you.
through.
We're not victims.
Yeah, but you guys have stepped into it, and I've seen it. I know Garrett's seen it. So I just wanted to say hats off to you, Danielle, on that.
Thank you.
Garrett,
So I know two things. Number one, you've got, as like a listener of the show, like right now today, you had 2 examples of 2 couples who are demonstrating vulnerable transparency about the game of creation at the highest level. And for a lot of people, like I see guys speak by themselves or women speak by themselves, and you don't hear from their partners, and you don't really know what's going on. You guys put your family online. We put our family online. There's the real White House podcast we do with all of our kids together. It's like we're all just raising the standard. And like, this is a call to action for everybody listening to this. If you are a couple that's sitting in the same place, I'm telling you, just launch a fucking podcast. Start putting your voice out there. We have to create a new narrative and redefine what marriage is. You two are a perfect example of what a restart looks like in a beautiful and powerful way, knowing that most restarts are a fucking chaotic mess of an opportunity. And most people in our situation are saying, fuck it, we're done, we're out. And the divorce rate that's happening for people over 20 years together, and the chaos I'm watching happening for these men that I lead who are going into divorce and their whole world has been shattered. Yet in most situations, all it takes is a recommitment to growth and waking the fuck up. And if you'll do that, you'd be amazed. The person you're with might be exactly what you've been looking for, but you've been too blind. So don't wait till you get divorced to get fit. How about you just get fit now?
Right.
Don't wait till you get divorced to like be fucking inspiring. Do it now. And if we start doing this now and you guys redefine what it is to reconnect after divorce, and we can redefine what it is to stay committed in marriage and avoid the divorce.
And the sex is still great after 2 decades of each other. You're not bored. I mean, big hello, that's a myth.
Better than it's ever been now at this point in the game. So thank you so much for having us on the show in our living room.
Thanks for hosting us
to be
on
in your
our
living
show.
room. I love you guys. We're gonna do 2.0 because I feel like we're just getting warmed up.
I feel like these shows are going to go well, and we're going to have to do it again.
Yeah, for
I'm already doing Sax's hair. You're going to have to come down every couple months anyway.
Hell, here we go. I'm gonna need to get a freaking second mortgage on the house with this hair fucking shit. Guys, you know what to do. Like, share, comment. You guys know how to find Garrett and Danielle. They're all over the place. Go watch the other podcast that we just did, and 2.0 will be coming shortly. God bless. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.